Ramsbottom, an historic mill town on the Pennine Moors in Lancashire. Between 2000 and 2008, one of its streets was home to a family and their menagerie of pets, all of whom had moved up from the south of England.
The house was lovely, just what we wanted. And the garden, you could put a football pitch in it.
The Chawners comprised Dad Philip,
I've got sticky hands now.
Mum Audrey,
Right, that's enough now.
24-year-old Emma,
You're only meant to have a couple of pieces, not the whole thing.
Oh, shut up.
26-year-old Sam,
Sammy!
Sandwich.
Oh, the carpet sucked!
terrier Jenny,
She's disappeared in between her boobs, that's just wrong.
and a cockatiel called Billy.
Ow! It bit me! Get him. Move it.
Us as a family, we're just caring. We're a very close family.
Friendly, that's it. That's what we are, friendly.
At first, the new family were barely noticed by locals, including Stuart Johnson, the ex-chair of the Residents' Committee, and the only one of their neighbours willing to be on camera.
The first impressions of the Chawners basically was pretty quiet. They seemed to spend most of the time in the house. You would only see them getting in the car, going out shopping.
But it wasn't long before the neighbours began to see a different side to the new arrivals.
There wasn't a load of aggravation from day one. It was just incidents started building up over a period of time, and then you started putting two and two together.
Mr. Stuart Johnson was the most ignorant so-and-so I'd ever known. As I know, he was the main person to complain.
All right, that's fine, yeah, thank you.
A few weeks after moving in, the arrival of the family's loudest member, their beloved Pooch, was to mark a turning point in community relations.
And once we got Jenny, our neighbour complained about her barking 24 hours a day, which was never true.
Do you know, when that window being open, that made the dog worse.
And for the neighbours, who chose not to be identified, it was hell.
This dog was a nightmare. It could often be the first thing I would hear in the morning and the last thing at night. It was relentless.
Get out the window!
But clearly the Chawners had different priorities than worrying about their neighbours.
Our pets are more important than our neighbours. Our pets are like a family to us.
Equally, the neighbours' pets were proving a problem for the Chawners.
Oh, I must have stepped in it.
If you don't clean it off, you don't get your dinner. That means people don't pick up their own shit.
Where's the wet wipes?
That's disgusting.
And you know, one morning I got up, the milk was on the doorstep, and there's a dog up the road, and someone let the dog pee all over the milk.
But according to their neighbours, the main culprits fouling the area were the Chawners' own pets.
The dog poo, that's a load of rubbish, because when our dog does his business, we pick it up and we put it in the bin. That's where it belongs.
I saw on numerous occasions the Chawners leading their dog in front of neighbours' houses just so it could defecate.
The bit down here is down here.
Ew.
I never once saw the Chawners pick up their dog's mess.
Oh, God. I'll do that.
This is Jenny's poo. Jenny's a small dog. Jenny's poos are really small, yeah? And every time we used to go out and Ramsbottom, we used to get big shit on the floor. Jenny does a turd of it that small.
It wasn't just the Chawners' pets their neighbours had an issue with. It was also their favourite pastime.
What am I thinking EastEnders, don't ask?
I'm going to watch Supermarket Sweep, Deal or No Deal, fall in the bed, and then come down with me, and that'll swing right round then till 6 o'clock for the news. Yes, television is my most important thing in life, because there's not much else I can do now. You're going to Bruce on? Oh, yeah. Is my
Yours
light
is still lit up. No, yours is still lit up.
The TV would be so loud that The neighbouring houses could all hear the TV.
Some people had to endure it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Fed up with the racket from the Chawners' TV apparently blaring out constantly, the residents logged their complaints with the council. But one night, their next-door neighbour had had enough.
We watched all the programmes and then we went to bed, and then about 1 o'clock-ish, we had a knock on the door.
I answered the door, and the neighbour was on the doorstep giving me abuse and telling me to turn the TV down.
There's a torrent of abuse and foul language, and they just didn't want to know.
Well, I don't know how she made out we had the television loud that day, because it wasn't our television. That was just her imagination.
I think that things escalated after that because they thought they were being picked on, and the incidents got worse and worse.
Some people had to endure it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Dad, the lead's down there by the curtain.
Brothers.
It bit me.
Get him.
Move it.
But it wasn't just the Chawners' pets and viewing habits.
Oh, forget the big old...
It was the family's never-ending battles with each other that were also causing problems.
I'll just give her a spoon.
We used to hear them screaming at each other on numerous occasions.
What do you want?
Oh, shut up.
By 2007, there'd been over 500 complaints of noise and antisocial behaviour against the Chawners. But the family felt the neighbours were against them for another reason.
In Ramsbottom, we were victimised.
We've been called fat bastards, Teletubbies.
Fatties, we've been called who eats all the pies.
They made out that they were being picked on because of the size.
What we do in our own house and how we lead our own lives is our own. Absolutely gorgeous.
Over the coming months, the more the Chawners saw themselves as victims, the more they clashed with neighbours out on the street.
Not only are these people nasty to each other, but they're also nasty to other people.
Your children coming home from school and being pestered by the two girls.
No, never. We've never, picked on anyone. We've never done nothing.
Kept ourselves to ourselves.
Yeah.
Their neighbours disagreed.
We got screamed at. They used to throw things like bricks out of windows. The police were called on multiple occasions regarding the screaming.
We don't open our windows and throw bricks. That's just a load of lies.
They're nothing like what people say they are. They do help people out. But this particular neighbour next door, she did not like us. I just don't know, she did not like us.
As the weeks went by, the neighbours complained more and more to the council and the police, but the complaints did nothing to resolve the trouble, which now spread out onto the streets of Ramsbottom.
Once I was walking home on my own when the Chawner's father drove alongside me. He swerved the car towards me, onto the pavement and trapped me. He lowered his window and swore abuse at me. I was absolutely terrified and broke down in tears after he drove away.
I know what girl you're on about. That's more allegations. That's news to me. She got away with it as well. The lies.
It just doesn't happen in normal life. Suddenly, it had gone from being a nice, quiet street, and there was all this going on for, month after month, year after year, as it was.
They did everything they could to scare you and make you feel frightened. The less people on the street, at the time, the worse the abuse would be. It was terrifying.
The dispute between neighbours was about to escalate and become physical.
Well, we was walking our friend's dogs down the street, our older house, and we had this gang come towards us. About four pushed me away.
They grabbed hold of you, yeah.
They pinged me back. So,
They started asking what my mum and dad's names are.
yeah.
They started calling our dog.
I was across in my front room, and I heard a bit of kerfuffle outside. I looked across, and the two Chawner girls were stood here, right in front of the wall. As I walked round to the front door to come across and see what the trouble was, I heard a scream.
She just punched me in the face and I just got really angry.
I'm not saying it's right to retaliate, but there's only so much abuse anybody can take before they reach their breaking point.
The two Chawner girls were running up the road and the other girl was running down the road.
Don't know if I was effing and swearing, but probably was.
She was fuming.
And I remember we burst through the door and I shouted at my dad.
And when I answered the door, she was actually standing there with her hand over her eye and crying her eyes out.
As I was walking up the street, Mr. Chawner had run down the street, straight up the path of the neighbour. He was hammering on the door. I thought he was going to knock the door down. I told the resident of the house to shut the door immediately. If I wanted him to hit anybody, I wanted him to hit me and not the resident.
Busybody Stewart, who's on the committee for the council, actually come over and he actually said that Emma caused all the trouble and he stood right close to me like he was going to punch me.
And he put his fist up to hit me. I personally would have rather him have hit me because we might have got him off the estate a bit quicker.
It makes me feel sick looking at it because I had to go through this and still get evicted from the house.
People were scared to live in that street. Sometimes scared to go out of the house. People looking, is there anybody about? Are they walking up and down? You shouldn't be having to do that. You should be able to walk freely.
Fed up with their neighbours' complaints and feeling victimised, the Chawners came up with a plan to prove they weren't the only troublemakers.
When I came round in the car one day and there was a video camera hanging out of the window up there.
Got up one morning and fat was written into the car and also we had scratches into the car also, which was done, I don't know, with a key or penknife.
But the more the Chawners filmed, the more the neighbours fought back, sometimes in unusual ways.
There were complaints from the Chawners that gnomes had been taken out of people's gardens and placed into theirs.
This is where they come down and put the garden gnomes on the wall. Well, I think they done it because garden gnomes are on the Plymouth side and we're on the Plymouth side, so I think that's why they done it.
But it soon became clear it was more like filming a soap opera than an episode of Crime Watch.
Do you get a kick out of videoing young girls, yeah?
Do you get a kick out of scratching our car?
Who, me?
Nowhere.
Me? You think I want to go near your car? What's the point?
Because you do.
Got better things to do, she's not as pathetic as other people.
We're spying on people, we're getting evidence.
Got a problem with people around here.
Yeah, we like calling people, don't you?
I haven't called you nothing. I don't even know who you are.
You just said how you related to the guinea pigs.
Right?
You could just be standing in the street with a group of people and they would suddenly be at their window with a camera in their hand for no reason.
I don't want to use the word hate because I don't hate people, but I think they were so disliked, it got that they were hated by people.
Loathed by their neighbours, it nevertheless took 7 years for the authorities to finally bring the Chawners to court.
Well, we went to court and we had to admit to these allegations.
The 12 accusations against the family included violence, harassment, damaging neighbours' property, throwing things out of windows and noisy DIY at unreasonable times of day.
One Christmas, they said that we was banging the wall.
The Chawners came up with a bizarre defence for the banging. A story involving one of their favourite treats, a chocolate orange.
I just told him in court that all we did was just bang the orange on the wall. Just to crack it, that's all we did. And that's the only way that I've ever known how to do it.
To say that it was opening and eating chocolate oranges. Well, it beggars belief, doesn't it?
The Chawners claim their solicitor advised them to plead guilty or face immediate eviction. They were allowed to stay in their home on condition they kept the peace for the next 12 months.
Dad, the lead's down there, by the curtain.
We knew that it would only be a short time because we knew they couldn't control themselves for 12 months. And it didn't take long.
Weeks later, the neighbours' predictions came true, when the Chawner girls found a new way to make themselves heard.
Looking back on where we first met.
After the first court case, we stick together. We tried getting through it as a family. And my sister said to my dad and my mum, she said, "Oh, I'd like to go for the X Factor."
At the time of the X Factor, there was a lot of karaoke singing. She was obviously doing a lot of practicing. The singing, again, went on till the early hours. I don't think that she ever grasped that she couldn't sing.
Simon Cowell seemed to think as little of Emma's singing as the neighbours. The budding pop star's auditions turning her into an infamous flop star.
Maybe we were singing a few times there and again. Happy birthday and all that. I was singing. Can't stop that, can you?
Following Emma's X Factor disaster, over the next year the council received a further 134 complaints about noise. And by September 2008, the family were back in court. They were served with an eviction notice.
If they'd behaved themselves from the first court case, then they would still be living on the street.
We put some stuff in our car, like our clothes and some quilts and cushions, my pets, and we lived in the car for 7 weeks.
I'm glad they no longer live here, as they made our life an absolute misery.
I wouldn't like to see anybody in that situation, but for all the pain that they've caused people, I cannot feel sorry for them, really.
Let's get Ruby in.
They might have been evicted from their Ramsbottom home, but the Chawners would soon have a new roof over their heads and new neighbours. In Barnsley, retired magistrate Barry Roddis and his wife Phyllis have lived on this peaceful street for 14 years.
It was a quiet neighbourhood. A lot of people were older people like us. You could look through our front window and see all over Barnsley. And that's why we liked it here.
The couple have been happily married for 53 years.
Handsome-looking man when you were in your 20s.
I used to like showing my body off.
Oh yeah, you liked flattery.
But I was proud of that.
The Roddises were friendly with most of their neighbours. But then in 2002, they had someone new move in next door. 47-year-old Barry Barker.
I think the first time we saw our new neighbour was when he was in the garden.
It was soon clear to the Roddises this wasn't your average neighbour.
He bought this purple hearse and he was to ride up and down in it. And the registration on it was RIP.
And just a matter of months after moving in, Mr. Barker gave the Roddises cause for alarm. He had turned his driveway into a junkyard.
It was a complete eyesore. It was like living at the side of a scrapyard. All the spare parts were all over the front here. There was old cars with bonnets up, with rubbish in, old seats, you name it, it was there.
It looked to the Roddises like Mr. Barker had started up his own car repair shop.
It definitely comes right up onto his drive, resting against our fence.
Yeah, yeah.
It'd take the bonnet off first and the bumpers, and then it'd work its way through to the engine. More cars keep coming in. We were at it all the time.
And it wasn't just cars that had the Roddises worried.
They were just legs and a bit of body. And he stuck them underneath a car, didn't he? Legs with boots on.
His increasingly bizarre behaviour was causing alarm. It wasn't just Barry and Phyllis who were fed up with Mr. Barker's mechanical mayhem. Neighbours joined forces to petition to the council, and the local authority began an investigation into Mr. Barker's alleged business.
The police gave us this photograph, which was taken by an helicopter. There are that many vehicles, how many is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5
down that side.
On that side.
The council called a meeting to sort the issue out, and Barry was asked to be the representative for the neighbours.
Pause off.
It was a decision that was to have a great impact on Barry and Phyllis.
I was sat there and Barker came walking through the doors, and he looked at me as though, you know, he could have knifed me.
Mr. Barker claimed he was fixing the vehicles as a hobby, but the council concluded it was an illegal workshop and instructed him to remove the cars. In the aftermath, Barry felt Mr. Barker held him responsible for the council's decision.
I opened the curtains one morning, and what should I see on the drive but 2 cars. One had the number plate Grasser, and the other one said arsehole. Well, this was put on that car to get back at you. He thought that you were the one that grassed him to the council.
From then on, things took a turn for the worse when Barry discovered his neighbour doing some work on a boundary wall.
I said, make sure that you don't damage the wall, it's our boundary wall. And I got quite a lot of verbal abuse. I wasn't looking at him then. He'd got his spade and lifted it high, and the next minute I knew it had hit me on the arm. And he just walked away.
And he was coming up the drive here with blood all over his arm, and it was dripping onto the drive here. And I said to him, what on earth's happened? And he said, Mr. Barker has hit me with a spade. I just couldn't believe that someone would do that to someone else, hit them with a spade.
He is a total coward. He'll hide behind things and is evil, absolutely evil.
The police were called. In his witness statement, Mr. Barker claimed that he struck his neighbour by accident and that Barry had grabbed his hair.
Which is an impossibility because we've got a metal ornamental fence on top of our wall with spikes. And if he'd have leaned over, he would have got a spike in his stomach.
Despite the attack, Barry Roddis chose not to press charges.
He says, I've got to live here, just, you know, let it go. Might be a one-off thing.
Was it a one-off thing?
Well, no.
But Mr. Barker then found another way to make Barry and Phyllis's life a misery. He developed a taste for music.
Well, I'm in the kitchen here, and you could hear the music all around.
It appeared to Barry and Phyllis that Mr. Barker was pointing his speakers directly at their house.
You could even hear the music in the hall.
It could go on while 10, 11, 12, sometimes beyond midnight. You couldn't sleep.
And it was obvious he was playing mind games with us to drive us crazy.
Mr. Barker claims he had to have his music turned up full blast due to a build-up of wax in his ears.
He's continually playing mind games, trying to destroy both of us mentally.
3 years and numerous complaints later, Mr. Barker was finally given an ASBO. It banned him from repairing motor vehicles at home and playing loud music at night. That still allowed him 13 hours during the day when he could play his stereo. Despite the ASBO, Barry and Phyllis claim that Mr. Barker continued to harass them.
Sometimes he used to stand and just stare if I was walking up, like intimidating.
Everywhere she turned, there he was.
He used to look over his fence with his elbows on the top of the fence, just staring at you and just saying, "Are you all right, love?"
But Barry and Phyllis vowed not to be beaten.
Well, the police advised us to get real evidence.
They decided to install CCTV to catch their neighbour in the act.
This camera here points right up to the corner, takes all that section.
Undeterred, Mr. Barker decided to play them at their own game.
We noticed one day that there was a CCTV camera on the end of his greenhouse. The camera itself was faced straight directly over to our seat. We thought, well, we can't do anything without him trying to spy on us and watch every move that we make.
Having hounded Barry and Phyllis with loud music, Mr. Barker was now intimidating them with cameras. They had nowhere to go.
He climbed up and he looked over the top. He stayed there for about 10 minutes and he got down onto the roof for a few minutes and then he got back up again. That's the first incident that we got him to court.
It had taken 7 years, but finally, Barry and Phyllis had the evidence they needed to help send their neighbour to prison. Barry Barker was given a 4-month jail sentence for breaching his ASBO as a result of intimidation, abusive language and loud music. In court, Mr. Barker claimed that the dispute had caused him anxiety and depression.
I knew that the prison sentence which he was received would not stop Barker's activities towards us.
Upon his release from prison, Mr. Barker returned home, but clearly he was unrepentant. Within weeks, it seemed he was back to his old tricks.
We came in one day from shopping and we noticed that he painted some of the panels. He made spy holes so he could look through and not be seen by the camera. That's another way of intimidating us and saying that I can still do what I want, I can still see you, and you can't do anything to me.
After endless abuse at the hands of Mr. Barker, Barry was finally beaten.
It really affected my husband over the years, and it caused him a lot of mental problems. And he used to come out here with the dog many a time late in the evening, and I'd look through the window and I'd see him with the dog trying to gather himself. And that was all to do with the depression caused by Mr. Barker. I think it reached its lowest ebb when I went through into our bedroom and he just broke down, and he was really, really crying because he just couldn't cope with any more pressure.
It was depression. I couldn't do anything at all. I'd just given up.
As Barry struggled to cope with the stress of constant harassment, Mr. Barker was about to strike again.
We came from shopping one day and we walked in the back gate there, and our old fence had been ripped apart. It was breaking point for me. I just stood and cried, and I said, I can't cope with it anymore.
The dispute had reached a tipping point. Mr. Barker had driven his neighbours to the brink.
I knew that if I'd have got hold of Barker, I wouldn't have let go of him.
But somehow they found the strength and enough CCTV evidence for one last fight.
Mr. Barker was arrested and bailed not to come back to his property.
In May 2013, Barry Barker was found guilty of 5 breaches of his ASBO, including harassing Barry and Phyllis, of photographing them and damaging their fence. He was sent back to prison for 12 months.
Well, my future is that we get a new neighbour, a good neighbour, and we get his health back.
Isn't it nice to be peaceful?
Mr. Barker declined to tell his side of the story. His house is now up for sale.
We got him in the end.
In Bristol in 2010, former soldier Tim Wrigley had a new neighbour move into the flat next to his.
Initially, I had a good vibe about it because I thought, an elderly pensioner, he came across as a nice, genuine guy, friendly, polite, seemed level-headed, bit of a sense of humour, and likeable. That was my first impressions.
And over the fence, Barry Collins found himself welcomed into the community.
Tim Wrigley was a good neighbour. He used to cut my grass, and I used to give him a bottle of scotch or something.
At first, the two men were on friendly terms, although Tim was slightly concerned by Barry Collins' rather odd gifts.
He was often trying to give people things like meat or cheese, not your everyday sort of gifts you would sort of give to people. When he gave them to you, he never referred to it as a gift. He just said, "Yeah, I got something for you," and he would come and he'd kind of sort of push it into your hands. It's not the sort of thing I would do, you know. You meet somebody, and every sort of 2 or 3 days, you're having sort of meat pushed on you.
And it wasn't just the savoury giveaway, but its freshness that worried Tim.
The way he was talking, I just got the impression that none of it was kosher.
Got a friend of mine that works in a supermarket not close to here, and when it's sell-by date, they put it in a bin out the back, and I give it to the neighbours rather than throw it away.
Tim would throw the food away, but was unhappy when Mr. Collins started offering it to his dog.
I would reach over and bang his door with this and put it down there in a dish.
JD is just a lovely little Jack Russell. The reason why I didn't want him to give JD food, because dog food is specially designed for dogs. On many occasions, Collins was throwing dodgy meat in the garden, and of course dogs will sniff anything out in no time.
Worried for his dog's safety, Tim finally decided to have him rehoused. But the unwanted meat was by now tempting unwelcome visitors.
It was attracting vermin. He'd be putting it in his bins. As soon as I opened my front door, it'd be absolutely humming. It's the stench of the rotten meat. The smell would just hit you, and you'd smell that meat smell for days.
The out-of-date gifts were not the only problem Tim had with his neighbour, though.
It started off, do me a favour, he'd ring me up, I can't get down the shop, my legs are hurting, go down the shop for me. And a couple of occasions I did, but then it became more regular, and then it became every day. And I said, no, Barry, this is taking over my life.
I'd ask him to get me papers in a couple of beers and a loaf of bread. He'd do that, but for that, I'd give him a small bottle of whiskey or something, that's all.
Once Tim started saying no to Mr. Collins' request for errands, dealings with his neighbour soured.
The threats started coming in towards the car because I wouldn't go to the shop. You watch your bloody car tonight. The nastiness about it. It wasn't, I'm going to burn your car out tonight. It was, look out for the glow out the window tonight. Things like that.
No, never. I don't threat. I don't make empty threats. If I threatened to do it, I would have done it.
But little did Tim know things were to take another bizarre turn when his neighbour Barry Collins lit a bonfire.
Went downstairs, opened the front door, and straight away I was hit in the face with the smell of burnt, rotten, stinking meat. It was a really bad sort of fleshy burning smell. My car was on the driveway covered in ash.
Around there, most people are smoking weed and drugged out of their minds, and I had lit a bonfire to get rid of the rubbish.
Frightened by the threats and disruption, Tim reported Mr. Collins to the authorities, who paid him the first of many visits.
He wouldn't say anything to me face, because he was scared of me. When I was 20 years of age, I'd punch his head right off his shoulder. I mean it.
And as the days went on, his neighbour's threats escalated.
Every day I'd get a call from Collins. He'd leave me loads of abuse, leave me nasty messages on there, on the phone, tell me how much he's going to get me done and he's going to do me for this, he's going to slash my throat. I was getting these phone calls every day.
So do you think I'm really worried about killing him? I don't mind lying on a cell all day watching telly for nothing. No. And decent food and decent neighbours. Sure.
Eventually, on the 8th of November 2012, Mr. Collins received a visit from the police that would bring the situation to a head.
There was a big row here one night, and next day I had a lady from the council, 3 PSOs and a sergeant. The door was open and he just walked straight in, and I was quite rude to this lady. I just didn't like 5 people walking into my place.
Barry Collins was served with a court order on the spot.
The court ordered that Barry Collins is forbidden from interfering or engaging in any way with Timothy Wrigley, verbally abusing, physically assaulting or threatening to assault Timothy Wrigley, or threaten to cause damage to any property owned by him. It says, if you do not obey this order, you will be guilty of contempt of court and you may be sent to prison. I mean, how clear is that? I was just elated. I thought, this could be the start of something good now. I just thought that'd be the end of it.
But Mr. Collins' response wasn't quite what Tim was hoping for.
No, when I got the injunction, I wasn't particularly fussed because I knew in my mind I really hadn't done the things they said. They took me to a civil court and fined me £1,000, which I've paid on direct debit, £20 a week.
Having absolved himself with a cash payment, Tim says Mr. Collins ignored the court order. Desperate to prove his neighbour was breaching his injunction, in the days that followed, Tim came up with a plan.
I was told by authority that they will not act unless I've got proof, and that's what I did. I documented every bit of evidence that I could.
But Mr. Collins wasn't happy being filmed.
Well, that is an invasion of private privacy. How would you feel if every time you come out your front door, somebody's filming you? Would you like that?
Tim felt Barry decided to play games with the webcam.
He sat in his armchair, as soon as my lights would be on, he'd be like this, notice me light on, and he'd be straight out and then shouting up abuse. And he used to sit there and literally wait for my kitchen light to go on. On this particular video, Collins comes out of his house. My security light goes on. He just stands directly opposite my door. My security light goes out. He then steps back for it to go back on, and he just stands there. He's now walking away off up the path. And then he's gone for a couple of minutes. He comes back down the path, walks under my security light, and then he walks back into his own house. You can see clearly on that what he's doing on that CCTV is purely to piss me off.
Although Mr. Collins wasn't doing anything to breach the order, Tim nevertheless found his actions intimidating and claims that his neighbour wasn't acting alone.
It was every time I go out in the garden, you either get Collins or one of his friends, if you like, if you can call them friends, always out there trying to intimidate me. A lot of it was to try and show his power, if you like. You mess with me, this is what you've got to deal with. It's scary.
Mr. Collins claims he was just going about his business. But the continuous intimidation was making Tim feel like a prisoner in his own home.
You can't step outside your own front door. So I had to choose my moments to go out. And you know, if I saw him going out, I would take advantage and get out in the garden, just to avoid any confrontation, and that's how I was living.
There was only one way to prove Mr. Collins was breaching his court order, and after weeks of filming, Tim finally captured something that would prove vital to his case.
Collins comes out of his flat, and he just throws something at the door. I heard it thud. I had no idea what it was. The way he just holds this and he slings it, and he kind of sort of looks up and said, "Have some of that." As soon as Collins had gone, I knew something had hit the door, so I went down the stairs, opened my front door, and there was a packet of corned beef. So I immediately got a bag, and I kept that for evidence.
Mr. Collins had an explanation for the meat chucking.
It was windy, and there was a pack of corned beef that I couldn't eat, and there was nothing wrong with it, it was sealed. And I threw it over there, and for his dog, and it was windy, and it just went that way into his thing.
Tim gave the authorities his evidence that Mr. Collins was breaching his court order to not engage with him in any way. It resulted in a court summons for his neighbour, but Barry Collins had other ideas.
And he went to Spain like some sort of big criminal, like a Mr. Biggs. And he likes to perceive himself as a Mr. Biggs. I'm on the run. You know, I've gone to Spain. I had a feeling he wasn't going to come back.
But it seemed the Costa del Crime wasn't his thing, and only a few weeks later, Mr. Collins returned to the UK.
As I came into, to show me passport, there was two coppers there, and they arrested me and took me out of the prison.
2 years after his nightmare began, Tim finally got the phone call he'd been waiting for.
And it was some policeman that was dealing with it, and he said, "Good news, we got him." And that was his words, "We got him." Bristol Airport. And he says that he'd be waking up now at Her Majesty's prison. And to be able to walk to the shop without having to fear anything, without having to look over your shoulder, it's the best feeling ever.
Tim Wrigley decided to move house, but Barry Collins, now free from jail, is back at home and remains unrepentant.
I don't really want to talk about Wrigley because he's a scrounger and a no-gooder. I'm fed up with him. I really am.
Barry, why don't we talk about...
I don't know where he lives. I don't want to know where he lives.
In rural Leicestershire, back in 2003, neighbours in one quiet cul-de-sac enjoyed a tranquil and simple life.
They're really quite good now, aren't they, the Dahlias and the fuchsias?
3 families, the Walns, the Pollards and the Elliots, had become good friends.
You've got to get that out. You've got to made alone them.
You know, good neighbours, good friends again, and the kind of neighbours that you want.
Next to the Pollards and across from the Walns lived Leslie Collins.
Mr. Collins has never been the perfect neighbour, but he was a reasonable neighbour. He went to work and we went to work. It wasn't somebody who'd invite you to go round and have a cup of tea with him or a pint of beer or anything like that, but it was reasonable, you could live with him.
But when Mr. Collins, a carpenter by trade, began spending more and more time at home, things began to change for the worse.
It was always the 2-finger salute. We thought this was funny. We just ignored it, but it went on and on.
I've seen him in the garden when it can be really calm, and then the next thing, it's just like the balloon's gone up. He's shouting and ranting and raving.
As long as you kept out his way, then things were okay.
Although the neighbours tried to live peacefully side by side, as the weeks went by, it wasn't just Colin's rude behaviour that upset them.
He'd bring these pallets and he'd pile them all up on his drive. So when I'm looking out my lounge window, all I'm looking at is these piles of pallets and waste wood. It was like a wood yard.
It looked to the Pollards like their next-door neighbour had started a wood recycling business.
The noise it's like a sawmill going really. He's got a power saw. It's just going all the time. Well, the noise is so bad that we can't sit in the lounge. We have to go into the kitchen or we have to go out. A lot of the time we would spend 4 hours a day out of the bungalow.
After putting up with the noise for several weeks, in an attempt to stop him, the neighbours reported Collins to the council for running an illegal business.
They just said that as far as they was concerned, Mr. Collins, it was a hobby.
We were absolutely flabbergasted. We could not see how they could class it as a hobby when we had lorry loads and van loads of wood coming and going.
The residents weren't prepared to accept the decision, though. In order to prove how big an issue the recycling was, Michael Pollard dusted off his family camera to play detective.
Mr. Collins was accepting a load of scrap pallets. I'd sit in the car, I could take pictures of him. You're putting yourself on the line, but nevertheless I felt I had to do it. If we were going to get a resolution to the problem, then evidence had got to be gathered.
Over the next 4 years, Mr. Pollard took countless photos and the case on Collins grew. Collins was aware the 3 families were watching him, but to their horror, one weekend did something quite unexpected.
It was a Sunday morning, nice sunny day, going out into the garden, and I could hear somebody banging at the back of my fence. And I went and had a look round. He got a hammer and chisel and he was chiselling all the bricks and the blocks out. He'd hammered and chiselled them away. I leaned over there, pointed the camera down the boundary. There was a big hole that he'd made at the bottom of the fence.
With his fence under attack, Michael called the police, but there was nothing they could do.
Wasted exercise. It got away with it.
But that was just the beginning of some very bizarre behaviour.
Mr. Collins from over there came out, started banging lids with his iron bar. I carried on, I cleaned my windows, and next thing I just couldn't believe what he was doing. As I looked at him and he turned round and dropped his trousers like that and started whittling his bottom at me.
He done the same old trick and pulled his mask, his stocking over his face as if to say, oh, it weren't me.
And it wasn't just the noise and rudeness. Mr. Collins' actions began to increasingly unnerve his neighbours.
He's just staring. He also, on one occasion, had a big spotlight in his front bedroom, directed right to our lounge.
According to Mr. Collins, the only lights he had were the ones on his ceiling. But as far as the neighbours were concerned, Mr. Collins was spying on them.
Shirley over the road rang up and said, "What are you doing?" So I said, "Well, I'm having a wash getting me dressed." So she says, "Because Collins stands on the drive looking over your house with binoculars." And then I realised he was standing on the drive looking through this lounge window with his, and could see me going in and out the bathroom.
His answer to the police when we reported this incident was that he was using them for bird watching.
I'm angry about it because I'm in my own home while he's doing this. You can't even have privacy. This is my home and I should be able to do what I like in it without having him with binoculars spying on you all the time, watching you what you're doing.
Mr. Collins admitted he used binoculars and says had Mrs. Walne, in his words, been a looker, he'd have used them more.
All the problems that we had with Mr. Collins were taking over our daily life. We couldn't relax or think about anything else.
In an attempt to distance themselves from their neighbour, Mr. Pollard planted a barrier of conifers.
I could only put trees up to give us some peace from Mr. Collins. So I started from there, all the way down the side of the lawn, and then across the front.
But it didn't stop Mr. Collins.
And I just happened to be in my porch, and I saw Mr. Collins chopping Mr. Pollard's trees.
Really, it was any time that we were away from the property, he'd see that as his opportunity to chop holes in the trees. Yeah, Mr. Collins got a big hole there between these two trees to look across the lawn and towards the drive. He's cut a massive hole here so it can see when you're in bed there, that's the bedroom.
Mr. Collins claims he was merely pruning his neighbour's overgrown conifer.
He could stand there peering at you, pulling faces at you, bobbing his tongue out, like childish things all the time.
Clearly, there was no love lost between these neighbours. It would take 10 years and over 200 complaints to the police and council from the three couples before the authorities took action. Finally, an ASBO was issued in 2010, stopping Mr. Collins from having anything to do with the three families, cutting down their trees, making noise or throwing anything onto their properties. The neighbours hoped it would be the end of the problems, but they were sadly mistaken.
He didn't take any notice of the ASBO whatsoever.
Too many loopholes in it.
Yeah, it was written for him, really, to let him carry on.
And carry on he did.
This is the barbecue area, yeah. This is where we'd had the barbecue, the grandchildren there, my son there, and Collins would put his chair on top of his pile of pallets, the other side of that fence, and he'd be peering at us all the time. It's so long ago now, since we had a barbecue, it's 3 years or more, and it's all because of his actions.
Soon, Mr. Collins' scare tactics weren't confined to the street where they all lived.
It's every time you go out, you're looking over your shoulder. You go down the bottom of the road and you'd look up to see whether there's cars moving.
Even a simple trip to the shops could turn into a nightmare.
I went to do my shopping and noticed Mr. Collins in the queue at the checkout.
Walking down the road, beautiful day, not a care in the world, quite relaxed. I got about here, I looked up that cul-de-sac and I recognised Collins's car. And I heard him start the engine.
Mr. Collins came behind me in his car, 2 inches away from my legs, and came behind me all the way back to the trolley park. I felt sick, I felt nervous, and I felt frightened.
I heard it coming along, rip-roaring down, and as I got here, I knew he was close, so I just stepped to one side behind this lamppost, and Collins come right alongside me. I was shaking. And
my legs were trembling. I got in the car, I didn't know how I could drive home.
It came later on, the shock.
And then when I drew out the car park, he came behind me. He frightened the life out of me.
Not content with intimidating his neighbours, visitors to the street also felt threatened.
We were just watching my son John and the two grandchildren walking up the road, and Mr. Collins came out his front door as they approached his lawn there, ran across his lawn or hurried across his lawn to confront him at the edge of the lawn there. He was shouting abuse to the grandchildren. The wife shouted him. Shirley shouted from the front door, "You come home and leave your dad there to sort Collins out." And the son raised his fist. He said, "I'll hit you. If you don't pack it in, I'll hit you." But the wife shouted, "No, it's not worth it. If you hit him, you'll be the one that goes to prison." So the grandchildren rushed in the house, and Ella lay on the floor. She was so traumatised, and it was all because of the action of Mr. Collins. Well, it made us feel like prisoners in our own home. But what can you do? This was what Mr. Collins did.
Next door, the Pollards had noticed Mr. Collins had started depositing something strange on their property.
Mr. Collins was putting concrete into Michael's guttering to block the guttering. The police kept saying, "I can't see how Mr. Collins can do this. How can he do it? Is he coming on your property?"
But it wasn't just concrete that was being deposited into their garden. Mr. Collins had created another rather unsavoury concoction.
I went out the back door and I said, "God, there's a terrible smell." I said, "It's just like somebody's chucked some urine over on the garden." I said, "Have you spilled something?" Because I weren't sure that it were that. And he said, "No, I've not been out yet." So I said, "Well, there's something not very nice on the back garden."
It would later become clear to the Pollards that Mr. Collins had made a mixture of human excrement, urine and motor oil and was throwing it into his neighbour's garden.
It used to come down onto the capping on the wall, onto the lawn, onto my bin, down the fence there, along that wall there, and then it used to splash along the footpath for about 3 metres down the path. I think it did it because, well, this is our bedroom, and it's also an area where the grandchildren play. They'll come down here on the scooter or the bike and come round the bungalow and go round and round, you see. So he did it, I think, for one reason, to try and stop them doing that. Well, enjoying life, really, enjoying being a child. It seemed to be a problem to him.
The police just said, "Well, did you see him do it? Did you see Mr. Collins do it? Have you got any witnesses that Mr. Collins did it?" And of course they hadn't.
Extreme behaviour required the neighbours to fight back. Michael Pollard was determined to catch Mr. Collins in the act.
We've known what Mr. Collins has been doing over the years, but every time he got away with it, a lack of evidence, insufficient evidence, and I decided to put some quality 24-hour surveillance CCTV camera that would record it in sufficient detail that you could recognise who was doing it. And I decided to put it in when Mr. Collins was not present. Constantly looking over the road to see if Collins came back up the road.
I said he could come back any time. But as it were, he didn't, so he managed to put the camera up. And I said, "Well, is it going to be worth it?"
But it was well worthwhile. Just a week later, Michael captured some shocking evidence.
Mr. Collins, the evil neighbour.
So what's he looking for?
He's looking for something, and he's looking for something to step on. There's our fence, and that's there off his wood pile. Now he stands up, looks over, the coast is clear, the bucket's in his hand, look. Yeah. Watch out, here it comes, look, straight over our fence. Look at that, disgusting. He's going back for another load.
The footage also solved the puzzle of the concrete, and it involved a homemade giant-sized ladle.
Down goes the concrete, down my drain. Who could dream of doing anything like that to your neighbour's property.
Following 10 years of complaints, there was now real evidence of Mr. Collins' antisocial behaviour, and he was summoned to court.
He's got away with it so many times, we still believed he could get away with it. He could walk home with us again.
So I said, no, I won't think anything until we hear it in that court.
From the judge.
What he's got.
Leslie Collins denies mooning, making V signs or menacing the neighbours while out in his car. He also told us he's never given them any verbals. In fact, he claims the Walns, Pollards and Elliots invaded his privacy and subjected him to verbal and physical abuse, which the three couples obviously deny. However, in court, Mr. Collins pleaded guilty. He was sentenced to 34 months in prison for breaching his ASBO on 2 occasions, damaging property and running an illegal waste facility.
I felt like I wanted to jump up and shout, hooray, thank you, Judge. That's how I felt, but I didn't.
So once again, peace reigns in the neighbourhood.
Just to be able to be free, that's how I feel, free.
It's like a normal street again after so many years, yeah, and we hope it stays that way.
That is, until Mr. Collins' release from prison sometime soon. When people say they want to escape to the country, Bow in Devon is the type of village they usually imagine. 7 years ago, following a divorce, Robert Crowley came here looking for a fresh start.
I think you get a feel about somewhere when you go into a property and you feel at home, or you don't feel at home. And I felt this was, you know, a probably good place to live.
The village has a family feel to it, and nowhere more so than on Roberts Street, where 3 cottages are occupied by the Kellaway family, who have been here for 38 years.
Well, we just got talking, like, you know, it's funny, really, and we just was friends, and that was it, like, you know.
They introduced themselves to me when I was sort of digging out my back garden, which was a bit of a mud heap, and they offered their services to me. You know, we'll dig that out and concrete that over if you want. So they started doing little jobs for me.
Well, he wanted us to help him put his shed up out the back and all that, you know, and I'd give him lots of bits of material and stuff. You know, I thought he was all right. And sometimes if I bought a bag of turnips, I'd give him a turnip. Never used to charge him.
And he noticed my flying pigs on the wall as well. So the next thing he's produced these flying geese. And here you are, you know, I've got these for you. And I thought, well, I don't really want them. But because they were a gift, you know, I thought it was only polite to accept them gracefully and whatever.
We were very good friends in the beginning. We used to come in here and have cups of tea and sandwiches. I used to go in his place and have sandwiches and cups of tea.
They would make me a cup of tea and once or twice a slice of saffron cake with a piece of cheese. Never had that before. It must be a local delicacy or something.
Robert was welcomed into the close-knit community by Keith Kellaway and his son Matthew, and was even happy to lend them the tools of his trade as an electrician. But when it came to his best tools, he had to draw the line.
I refused to lend them my big Jason machine. I've lent expensive tools out in the past, and they've been returned, burnt out, so I'm not going to take the risk of that. There was a definite change of mood with the Kellaways after I refused to loan him this expensive drill. I was sitting here enjoying an evening's TV when I heard some slapping on that window. So I got up, opened the curtains. I could see the profile of 3 people. They were laughing and really enjoying themselves. But I was fairly spooked out by it. I thought, if you can't sit in your own lounge and enjoy a night's TV, you know, this is not neighbourly. I telephoned the police for the first time.
Robert believed that one of the 3 men he saw was Matthew Kellaway. The police investigated, but Matthew denied any involvement. Not long after, Robert's nighttime peace was disturbed yet again.
Boom! This window came through, the curtains were shut, but it opened the curtains with the ferocity of the force of it, and shattered laminate glass all over the place. A few seconds I got to gather my senses. I picked up this poker and went outside with it for my own protection, or I didn't know whether anybody was going to be hanging around outside, but the street was clear.
Robert had his suspicions as to who was responsible, but there was no proof or witnesses. Keith and Matthew Kellaway have said they know nothing about the incident.
When the police came out, I was repairing the front window with these bits of board, wooden boarding and whatever. I could hear people saying, well, we don't really want to get involved. So I thought, oh, I'm definitely in this on my own.
Robert was feeling increasingly isolated, so the last thing he was expecting to come through the door was a Valentine's card.
This is a card I received on Valentine's Day in 2011. And I don't get many of these. So I opened it up, and it says, "To the one I love, to Robert, happy Valentine's Day. Roses are red, violets are blue. Face like yours belongs in a zoo. Ha, 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 ha." Immediately I knew it was from the Kellaways.
No, he's making that up. No way in hell. You know, he's not really what I call a well-liked man in the village. So it could have been anybody.
I used to enjoy sitting out on the bench because I get all the evening sun there. It's quite a little sun trap. Father and son and their partners and the kids came by and stopped, and the father sort of put his foot on this chain link that I used to have here and said, "All this trouble's going to carry on until you move from here." And all the time his temper's swelling. You could see sort of the veins building up in his neck and his eyes bulging, and he's leaning back and forward as if, you know, stop me from killing him. Go on, stop me.
Keith Kellaway has denied all knowledge of this event, but Robert Crowley claims he felt under threat and decided to install surveillance equipment. For his part, Keith claims that Robert was far from being the innocent party.
This is a letter we had around the village, all about the Kellaway family. A lot of it's not true.
The letter claimed to be from a fake charity called Kellaway Aid.
I haven't sent any letters, and I would certainly swear on any oath that I don't send poison pen letters to anybody.
Despite the denial, Keith believes he has proof that Robert sent the letter.
Well, we got this Christmas card. This was when us was friends. Well, this is about 3 or 4 year old, this Christmas card. But obviously he didn't realise we kept the Christmas card that he's writing in.
Although he hasn't had the handwriting professionally analysed, Keith is convinced the two samples match.
He's not an innocent man, is he? Because we got bits and pieces that puts him in the picture.
I was sat here one evening in September, about 6 o'clock after returning from work, having my tea, having something to drink, and I could hear quite a hullabaloo going on.
2 doors down from Robert Crowley's house, where Keith's daughter lived, a shed had caught fire.
Well, we went down our daughter's place. We left about 5 o'clock, and we had a phone call about 15, 20 minutes later saying their shed's on fire because the smoke was pouring in through the back door. It was out of control, the shed was, because there was 2 or 3 ton of coal in there and a ton of wood in there, plus all my mother's contents when her passed away. You know, so there's a lot of things that was destroyed that is not replaceable.
So I came and opened the front door and spoke to the fire officer who was stood at the front door and said, "Oh, have you managed to contain the fire and whatever?" And jokingly offered him my fire extinguisher. He said, "I think we've got it covered now." And at that point of time, a close friend of the Kellaways came up. came right into my face and said, "You started this."
He come out with a little fire extinguisher about 18 inches long, talking to the fireman with it in his hand, and he looked at us and laughed. So, you know, we knew what he'd done. He was just letting us know what he'd done, like.
I phoned 101 and, you know, nipped it in the bud. I said, "Look, there's a serious fire going on in this village at the moment. And I'm sure I've just been accused of being the fire starter. I want to tell you now, make it clear that I've nothing to do with this whatsoever." But later on that evening, a police officer from Oakhampton had come out and asked to view my CCTV. The fire and the origins of the fire and when the first wispy smokes came out from the shed were recorded on the hard drive of my CCTV recorder.
Can we see it?
No, because it wasn't burned off to a disk or whatever. It was only there for 7 days after that, and then the hard drive goes back to the start again.
They come up and they said it's inconclusive. They couldn't say whether it was electric or whether it was started, you know, but like I say, we know, and I think other people know as well.
Wasn't me, Gov. You'll never pin it on me.
In the months following the fire, Robert claims his works van, which was parked outside on the street, was vandalised. He thought he knew why.
I'd been blamed for this fire, or even though my conscience is clear, I certainly didn't do it.
But there was no evidence.
I was really quite frightened. I really tried to live here anonymously without showing any smoke coming out of the chimney or any steam coming out of the central heat and flue, because I really didn't want them to know whether I was here or not.
He's saying he's nervous living there and all this and that, but he's not really. He's sitting in there thinking what else he can do. I think he likes attention of all of it and all the cameras and that. He watches everybody walk up and down there and passing his door and all that. He got nothing else to do, has he? He sits in there watching it. They reckon that he's obsessed by it, and he's obsessed by me. Well, why is he obsessed by me?
Both sides suspected the other of having a vendetta against them. Then one night, it all came to a head.
I noticed some ladders had gone missing. I decided to have a ride up into this compound that the Kellaways have, and I might just happen upon these ladders.
Unknown to Robert Crowley, the Kellaways were still on site at their compound a few miles away.
He rode up and down past the property 4 or 5 times. So I said to Carol, I said, it's that bloody Robert Crowley.
When I got there, the gate was open, so I shone my torch through the gate.
I heard the gate squeak, because he squeaks, a farm gate squeaks. I said, he's coming up the bloody drive. So I grabbed the pitchfork, and I just grabbed it and I shouted at him.
And then I heard this shout, "Oi, what do you want?" I retreated quite hastily.
He turned and run. We come back a shortcut and parked in the driveway to stop him getting his bike in.
So when I got back to my house, the Kellaways, father and son, had already returned.
And I asked him, what the hell were you doing out on the property? And he kept going, putting his hands up in the air, saying, what evidence have you got? Well, I didn't need evidence. I've seen him now, I chased him, you know?
Then I said, look, go away, but I said in much stronger terms than that. And I closed the door on them. So I put my weight against the door, pulled the handle up, and then turned the lock. And then I could see through this glass. Keith took a punch with his left hand at the door, and then Matthew, I could see his foot up, he was kicking with his steel toe cap boots 4 or 5 times, and eventually that panel came in.
But he was stood about 8 or 9 foot back, so he runned at the door and shouldered it, and that's what, he caught Matthew's knee a bit. I did go like that with my hand, but that must have been the reaction, you know. He's 18 stone, isn't he? He runned at that door and shouldered it.
Dialed 999 and Police were out in about 10 minutes.
The police arrested Matthew and Keith Kellaway for causing criminal damage. And in April 2014, their case appeared in a magistrate's court.
Well, they found me not guilty. And my son, they found him guilty of kicking the door. And they said that, you know, he kicked it fairly hard, so he probably broke it. And like I said, he got to pay, I think, £700 towards the cost of another door. He's laughing at that because he knows he broke a door. He knows that. But like I say, it's one of those things, isn't it?
Matthew Kellaway was convicted, but that wasn't quite the end of the saga.
I thought after it went to magistrate's court, if there was a lesson to be learned, that they may have learned it and backed off. But no.
When I come down from the garden, I'll go like that. I know he's watching me, you know? Then I give him the V sign sometimes. Victory.
My immediate family said, you know, why don't you move? And I say, well, why should I? You know, I've spent 2 or 3 years titivating the place. Why should I let bullies drive me away?
We're never going to be friends with them, never, ever, no more. We know too much. My mate, he said 200 years ago, Crowleys was witches. It's true. He went to college and he said, so maybe there's a bit of witch coming out in him.
Trian and Carla Ellis and their 4-year-old son Lorenzo live on a street like any other, on the outskirts of Banbury in Oxfordshire.
We're just an ordinary family. We don't do anything massively interesting.
We like our privacy. We're not socially inept. We're quite happily...
We're polite people.
They had been there for 3 years when in 2005 the Page family moved in next door. And at first they got on fine.
The only thing I would say is that they appeared a little bit maybe over-friendly.
But after 4 years, things changed.
At the beginning of 2009, when there was the recession, Mrs. Page had told us that Mr. Page's business had been hit quite hard. In April, we went to Australia to get married.
It probably seemed out of their window.
We were doing really well.
According to the Ellises, the divide deepened as the Pages found their unkempt garden an eyesore.
Because I don't think he had much work, he put his focus into doing their garden, and I just got the impression that we had to follow suit.
It was around that time that he stopped speaking to us.
Every time they saw the Ellises, the Pages would stand and stare, but say nothing. The couple felt intimidated, but then other bizarre stuff started happening.
What we've got here is some examples of junk mail that we were getting. This one's addressed to Mr. Alfred Wagner, which never heard of that.
Most of it seemed to be based around gardening magazines. If you look at the names Mr. A. Wagner and Mr. A. Kent, if you change a couple of the letters, so Mr. A. Wagner could read Mr. A. something rather offensive.
It's all very psychological, just almost a bit creepy, as if somebody is playing psychological games.
We'd had snide comments from Mr. and Mrs. Page about weeds in our garden. You know, you sort of piece 2 and 2 together and we think it's them sending it to us.
Trian was convinced this was a personal attack, but without any proof, they had no choice but to get on with their lives.
We'd been trying for a baby, and then in June 2010, we found out I was pregnant, which was very good news.
But then something unnerving happened.
And we didn't plan to tell anybody until I'd had the 12-week scan.
Around week 10 or 11, I went out on a school reunion. One of the girls that was there was a friend of Mrs. Page's, and she congratulated me on my news. She told me that Mrs. Page had told her, to which I was dumbfounded, I think.
We did have a bit of paranoia, if you like, of how has she got that information, and it can only be from earwigging in a conversation that we've had inside our own home.
However the Pages found out, they decided not to let their paranoia run away with them. But then the disturbing events became more visible.
Unfortunately, I was very sick during my pregnancy. When I felt slightly better, I used to try and go out for a walk each day, just to the end of the road and back. Each time I went out, Mr. and Mrs. Page would come out shortly after me and follow me up the road. It happened too many times for it to be a coincidence. I came out at different times every day, and every time I came out, they'd be out as well. I found it quite scary and intimidating.
Being pregnant and often on her own, Carla was terrified by the neighbours' constant presence and alarming stares. So in August 2010, they took drastic measures.
With the following, that was the final nail in the coffin. So we called the police and asked for their help. We wanted to get it sorted out before we had the baby.
The police told the Ellises they had instructed the Pages to stop following Carla.
What we noticed was that Mr. Page was starting to block up one of the windows on his house.
In March 2012, when putting her son to bed, Carla noticed something ominous from his bedroom window.
As I stood here, I could see the breeze blocks going further and further up, and on the centre one there was a picture of a person's eye with a pupil and eyelashes looking directly at me. We took that to be another cryptic message that they're still watching us. They'd had warnings from the police not to follow us, and we just took it as their way of saying, we can't follow you, but we can watch you, we're still watching you. It's just disgusting, horrifying, shocking, I suppose.
Suspecting the eye was there to spy, they became even more troubled by bizarre goings-on near their property.
I arrived home to find some bricks on the boundary on Mr. and Mrs. Page's drive, just here, in the shape of a T for, I'm presuming, treeing, and then an upside-down V, which was a bit strange. The only thing I can think of is it was a Mickey take out of my teeth.
For Trian, this was no joke. So far, the incidents had been psychological. But in June 2012, over 3 years since the trouble started, things got very physical.
I was woken up with a jolt with hammering on the door. I was half asleep, wasn't sure what it was. I was here alone on my own with an 18-month-old baby. So then I decided that I wouldn't go down the stairs, I'd go through and I'd open the window. Looked out, realised that it was actually Luke Page from next door kicking my front door in.
I was the other side of the county when Carla phoned me in a panic.
I asked him what he wanted and he just shouted at me, "Where's Trian with I'm gonna effing kill him?" And I said, "He's not here." And he said, "Just tell me where he is, you effing bitch."
So I made my way to the police station, and then the police followed me back home to make sure it was all calm. Predatory behaviour. Just shows that they're watching us come in, watching us go in, preying on us. And it's a psychological game.
Your home is supposed to be your sanctuary, somewhere you want to go, somewhere where you chill out and relax and have fun. We dread coming home.
Still panicked, the next morning, Carla found a note.
And it said, "To Carla, sorry I knocked on your door last night. I know I should not have done it. I'd had some beer and acted like a fool. Again, sorry, from Luke Page." So I was quite pleased that they'd sent an apology, but at the same time, it was a bit half-hearted, and I don't think you can ever apologise enough for scaring somebody like that in the middle of the night and trying to kick their front door in. So, you know, a little bit of paper with the word sorry on it doesn't amount to anything, really.
The police told the Ellises that Luke Page had received a verbal harassment order. But despite this, their nightmare was far from over.
I'd come to the park with Lorenzo on a nice, cold October afternoon. We were the only ones in the park. I look up and I've got Mr. and Mrs. Page stood there, facing me, just staring. And by the time I'd stood up and went to grab my phone, they were then started to walk away.
Trian managed to capture something on his mobile phone, and he was convinced the shadowy figures in the distance were the Pages. He showed it to the police and believes the Pages were told to stop following them once again.
It was horrible.
And as if things weren't spooky enough, a Halloween prank would bring more unease for Trian.
It was on 1st of November, day after Halloween. Came out onto the drive at 5 o'clock and my truck was parked here. And what I found was eggs sprayed across at this angle, all across the bed, all at the back of the cab. There must have been 10 eggs. You could see the markings on the shells. I gathered as much of the eggs up as I could. I went to the police station. I wanted to know if there was any evidence that we could obtain from them. The police said that they wouldn't be able to obtain any forensic evidence off of an eggshell. OK, so this is a bag of evidence that I've gathered over the years. It's a cork that's been thrown at our bedroom window. We have a leaflet to do with gardening yet again. The white pebble with the green paint, which is off the back of our Picasso when it was stoned. An array of cigarette ends, various different stones, all the stones match. I mean, I'm not a stone expert, but... And then we've got the squeaky toy that was thrown into our garden. And that's an old toy that's been thrown in at some point.
But one night, they were disturbed by something far more dangerous when they heard an alarming noise outside.
I went to the office and had a quick look to see if I could see it. There was nothing on our drive, nobody on our drive.
So we just brushed it off, didn't we?
The next morning, Trian turned detective again.
As soon as I closed the gate, I clocked it straight away. Big bit of the paint missing on the car. And when I detailed, I could see it had been pellet gunned. And then it just, I froze. And it's like, is this really happening? And then it all fell together. The noise on the glass we heard last night must have been coming off of the car. And then your mind's going crazy. Am I next?
The police, however, could find no evidence, leaving the Ellises terrified for their safety.
After the car had been shot, we started having conversations about bullet vests and us wearing bullet vests. Who has conversations about wearing bullet vests, in all seriousness, just to walk around your own property? But that is the crazy level that this was now at.
Trian and Carla presented their latest batch of evidence to the police.
The police looked at all the evidence and called Mr. and Mrs. Page in to be questioned under caution, to which they both got a written harassment warning.
But the Ellises were also in for a nasty surprise.
I'd just got home from work and then I had a police officer banging on the door and slapped 2 pieces of paper on my ironing board and said, "There's a written harassment warning for you and one for Trian."
And the harassment warning stated that an allegation of me calling Mr. and Mrs. Page paedophiles.
Allegations which the Ellises fiercely deny. By now, the Ellises were desperate to expose the Pages.
Everything they do is so covert that all of the other neighbours round here have absolutely no idea.
We want this out in the open because we've been living with this silently for too long, haven't we? They are trying to control us by instilling that fear into us and the intimidation and the games and the psychological
abuse.
Although they still have no proof, Trian and Carla are convinced they are the subject of a campaign against them. When we asked the Pages for their version of events, they didn't respond.
I think I would have probably moved some time ago, if I'm being honest.
I completely disagree. I don't see why we should be forced to move out of a house that we like in an area that we like just because somebody next door wants to set up a campaign against you.
In 2002, Steve and Eve Bedford moved to the east of Leeds with their 2 young children, Jason and Samantha.
I grew up over here and we just wanted to be near the friends and family.
Next door lived David and Janet Sheldon, who had been in the area for a number of years.
Janet and David introduced themselves, seemed like an OK couple. Over the years, we got to know them reasonably well, thought they were all right.
I think we made them a meal and a cup of tea and what have you, because you don't have anything going when you first moved in. They were all right.
The 2 families soon formed a firm friendship, and when the Sheldons renewed their wedding vows, they immediately thought of their next-door neighbours.
I was asked to be David's best man.
We went up to Gretna Green with about 40 of us, didn't we? And had a weekend up there. We had a right good time.
Everything seemed fine.
We thought we were good friends. That's all I can say, and that's all I can say. We were good friends.
But 3 years after the wedding, it all changed. It started with the Bedford's daughter Sam, who was then 14.
My friend was round and my cousin was round, and I'd walked out my drive and we'd got to here where the Sheldon's drive is, and he was doing some work under his car, and all of a sudden he just come out with, "Oh, you're still as ugly as ever, aren't you, Sam?" And I just laughed it off because I thought, that's just David being David. And then my cousin said, "Oh, well, I must be just as ugly because I'm a cousin." And then from that, he'd said, basically, if I wasn't under this car, I'd kick your head in and get your dad down and I'll do him in as well. I think we were all scared because obviously it's a grown man and he's threatening 3 young girls.
Steve Bedford, Samantha's father, was too far away to hear the conversation, but he would soon know about it.
David came storming across the road, shouting and bawling, carrying on, absolutely, completely lost the plot, shouting what he were going to do to her, that blonde girl. And initially we didn't know what we were talking about or who he was talking about. But what are you on about, David? And her with the blonde hair, I'm going to cave her head in. I said to him 3 times, "David, what's the problem? What has she said? And I'll have a word." And all he could reply was, "I don't know."
This conversation was overheard by a neighbour who backs up Steve Bedford's version. But David Sheldon recalls the events differently.
The cousin was making comments about, racist comments, to be honest with you, about my family and me. I'm pretty dark myself, like, and I'd just come back from Cyprus again, and I saw quite dark. Anyway, they went off laughing and giggling. And I went over and then talked to Steve about it. I said, "Look, Steve, have a word with her. It's not nice, that sort of thing."
Samantha Bedford denies that any racist comments were made by herself or her cousin.
I'm not a violent person, mate. I don't have to be. As it's been said, I am a black belt at martial arts. I don't have to prove anything. I don't have to go around threatening people. It's not my way.
The friendship was over, but soon afterwards, when the Sheldons went on holiday, they came back to a nasty surprise.
And for some reason, there was a massive great chunk cut out of our edge at front. So we went round and just asked, what's this all about? And all we got was, we can't see anything wrong.
Don't know what you're
And she was laughing her head off with Eve.
Yeah.
Eve Bedford had a different story. She claims that David Sheldon became violent and threatening.
He blew into a rage. He started swearing and blinding at me. Then all of a sudden he came right into my face, lifted both his hands to either side of my head, pulsating his fists, and he said, "I'm going to cave your skull in." I've never been so scared in my life.
Anyway, next thing, police came.
Accusing me of assaulting Eve, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But when the police arrived, there were 2 versions to the story. And according to the Sheldons, it was Eve Bedford that was throwing the punches at Janet.
And we explained what was going on, and Janet showed all bruises that she'd got where he was physically assaulted her.
I had bruises where she grabbed hold of my arm, and when she closed the gate, my elbow got cut. And they asked me if I wanted to take it any further. To be honest, I wish I had done.
I said, what assault, wasn't it?
Eve Bedford denies these allegations.
I'd come out of my house and then I'd hear the car engine turn on. And obviously they'd speed up a bit and go past me with a grin and waving and stuff like that. And then I'd come to this bus stop and usually my friend would be here waiting as well. Janet would normally drive past really slowly, giving it all the big grins and the smiling and the waving as if to say, like, we're getting away with it, and trying to intimidate me and obviously upset me or make me feel angry.
But once again, the Sheldons have a different version of the story.
Janet had been complaining to me that she was frightened to go to work on a morning because Samantha and a friend were terrorising her from the bus stop. Am I right? Shouting abuse at her and gestures and all sorts.
David Sheldon says that one morning he followed his wife to work, hoping to catch Samantha Bedford in the act.
Went down, turned right at the end, and I'm coming along, and I saw it for myself.
Yeah.
They were giving her loads of abuse from the bus stop.
But Samantha recalls things differently.
He'd slowed right down and opened his car door, and he was shouting, "Come here, I'm gonna kick your head in," waving his hands about at me, just trying to basically intimidate me. I was terrified, absolutely terrified.
The police were called, but no further action was taken by them. But according to the Bedfords, the Sheldons had other ways to antagonise them.
They now have some sort of a bird noise tweeting away in the background all the time in the garden.
I think you'll find these of them, the front pound shop. We have about 3 or 4 out garden. We like bird song, and when these start up, they set the other birds going. What's wrong with bird singing?
Feeling intimidated, the Bedfords put up CCTV, and one evening it caught something alarming. Once again, it was their daughter Sam who was at the centre of the row.
It was a really hot summer's night and I was like asleep here, and it got to like early hours in the morning and they'd come back and his wife was stood next to him shining a torch in my bedroom window. And then they were both stood there saying, "Get out of bed, I just want to kill you all," and he just kept repeating what he was saying. I was terrified because I was only like young at the time. Sorry.
But the Sheldons claim they weren't even home that weekend, and they have the paperwork to prove it.
We went the Saturday, Sunday, and we came back bank
We came
holiday
back
Monday.
early on the Monday.
When they did get home, this time they were in for a nasty surprise.
You couldn't see my back garden for pieces of trees. He'd actually attacked our trees.
The Sheldons claim Mr. Bedford had cut their trees and entered their property to do so.
He lifted the panel up.
And there's a stick.
Whilst the Bedfords were well within their rights to cut back the overhanging branches, it is illegal to enter another person's property without permission. Neither family can prove exactly what happened that weekend.
Came to the window and could see very clearly that somebody was there putting bricks on top of the dividing pillar. The problem I had was he was building it on my property. So I went out and told him to stop. He built the pillar from here, 2 bricks wide, all the way up at an angle to avoid the capping stone at the top, and took it to about this height.
They were all right for a few months, and then we got a letter from him stating that if we didn't remove the pillars, he'd do it.
And that's exactly what the Bedfords did. A panicked Mrs. Sheldon called the police whilst filming the Bedfords.
And he's just dumping it at the front. That's right. Oh God, I'm shaking like a bloody leaf here. It's continuous. You can tell by my voice. I'll shake now. Because I'm here again. On my own.
They seem to delight in terrorising Janet when she's on her own. The whole family.
I'm always here on my own when they start doing things. They wait for David to go out. They're always watching.
The police arrived and Samantha and her brother Jason were in for a shock.
I was fog marched down the street by the police officers. In the meantime, they also made accusations that my sister was involved in it.
There's nothing that I regret doing because I've not done anything. I got arrested for knocking down a wall that he'd built on our property.
And that was it for the next 12 hours. I was locked up in custody.
Jason and Samantha Bedford each received a harassment warning for their part in the damage to the brick pillar. The Bedfords and the Sheldons went to court over the boundary dispute. The trial was adjourned for a period of 12 months, and all parties were given an undertaking not to harass, assault or threaten. But this was far from the end of the war.
I was watering this side of the privet, so in no way am I squirting it into their garden. Then he briefly shoots out with a cup of freshly boiled water, as far as I'm concerned, and threw it over the privet at me. Clearly stunned me.
Well, no marks on him.
But when the police went, they want a mark on him. Now, I've scalded myself with a cup of tea, and it took 3 years to get rid of scald.
My automatic reaction is to lift my hand up and squirt him. The police say I antagonised him. It's absolutely ridiculous, and the CCTV proves it.
The argument between former friends, the Bedfords and the Sheldons, was about to spill out onto the streets.
As I turned into Althorpe Road, I saw David. As usual, he stuck his fingers up, shaking his fist. I returned the 2 fingers and pulled into the bank.
So I pulled into the car park, and lo and behold, the Stephen sat behind the bank.
I heard a screech of brakes, tyres skidding, and David had jumped out of his car at the side of me, ran over and was literally punching at the driver's door window, trying to break the glass. I'm gonna effing kill you.
David Sheldon claimed he approached Steve Bedford to bury the hatchet, but things went horribly wrong.
I tried to reverse the car to back off away from him.
I don't know if he knew what he was doing, but I was actually nearly pinned between the 2 vehicles. I just managed to squeeze out of the way. Otherwise, he'd have killed me. He'd have had me between the 2 cars and been crushed.
And he wasn't wrong.
It's gone through my mind since that perhaps the best option would have been to put my foot down when he was hanging over the front of the car trying to get away from him and just driven straight into the back of the bank wall.
Over the last 2 years, Steve and his family had been to court 4 times over the boundary dispute with Next Door, but now he was determined to get David prosecuted for assault.
I felt I had no option at this point because the aggression was out of this world. I was seriously concerned and had been for a number of years.
But before long, the court case came to an abrupt halt.
I had to end my court action because of serious health problems.
What he didn't realise is he's got all our costs to pay, about 7,500.
I have no money left. They've taken all my money already. It's cost us probably in excess of £30,000 now. And I just don't know where to turn.
The war with their next-door neighbours has taken its toll on the rest of the family.
It's just traumatised me. It's traumatised us all as a family.
And for Samantha, it was a life changer.
When I became 16, I got a job so that I could move out. If all this hadn't have happened, I would definitely still be here. But I sort of want to protect my dad.
Even now, we're just gutted, devastated by it, really.
I think you should come round here, have a beer and forget about it all. I mean, I'll write it all off. It's craziness. We were best of mates.